Mr. Morelle is recognized for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Meng, Chairman Cole, and Ranking Member DeLauro. As we work to craft the fiscal year 26 budget for agencies under the Commerce, Justice, and Science jurisdiction, I feel obligated to speak plainly not just about what's in this bill, but what we've endured in trying to get answers about it. The most important responsibility we have on this committee is operationalizing Congress's power of the purse, and with it, the obligation to engage directly with agency leaders to understand how they intend to use taxpayer dollars to serve the American people. That's why budget hearings are not just a formality, they are essential. They give the committee, and through us, all of Congress, the opportunity to evaluate whether agencies are living up to their missions and whether their funding requests reflect real priorities. So when we sat down with the U.S. Attorney General to discuss the Department of Justice's budget, I expected a serious conversation. Instead, frankly, I'm very disappointed. We were met with deflection. I know, for me personally, I asked straightforward questions about the scope of presidential pardons, about the safety of members of Congress who face increasing threats, how this affects not only members but staff and their families, and got precious little in return. My colleagues similarly met with filibustering, and that kind of evasion makes it impossible for this committee to do its job. Not to mention, this whole process has been hindered by such extraordinary delays by the president submitting his budget request. In fact, when she was here, the Attorney General's refused to answer our question. All of our questions, in my mind, undermines the legitimacy of this funding process and erodes public trust. I know this committee is capable of more. I have enormous respect for both our subcommittee chair, Mr. Rogers, and the chair of the Appropriations Committee at large, and I've worked with many of you who I know care deeply about economic development, public safety, scientific progress. I know there are leaders within our agencies who want to work in good faith with Congress to deliver results for our communities. That said, I'm deeply disappointed by the legislation before us today, and I'd associate myself with the remarks made by my dear colleagues and friends, Ms. Meng and Ms. DeLauro. It proposes deep and damaging cuts to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, an agency central to enforcing federal gun laws and preventing illegal firearms trafficking. It cuts billions from the National Science Foundation, one of the country's most important engines for scientific discovery and innovation, particularly at a time when scientific discovery and innovation have never been more central, more critical to our economic or national security needs, interests, and priorities. It slashes community violence intervention and prevention grants, which support proven community-based strategies to reduce gun violence and save lives, particularly in neighborhoods that are already under-resourced and over-impacted by crime. These cuts would have real and lasting consequences. They would weaken public safety efforts, halt cutting-edge research, and strip communities of life-saving resources. As appropriators, we here have a responsibility to scrutinize this legislation and ask whether these reductions reflect national priorities. This scrutiny requires candor and cooperation from agency leaders, and without clear factual responses, we simply cannot make informed funding decisions. I urge defeat of the bill, and instead I urge for all of us to work together on a bill that instead supports the American priorities and the American people. With that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.